Welcome back to another explainer. If you're a focused learner looking to stay ahead of the curve, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're unpacking a really crucial set of GSTN API changes that are literally going to reshape how things work for ERP vendors, system integrators, and corporate taxpayers all across India. We're talking about fundamental structural shifts in how e-invoices and e-way bills communicate behind the scenes. So, get ready, because we're going to get right into the technical weeds of what you actually need to build, test, and deploy.
To ground this right off the bat, take a look at this. This is the official advisory published straight on the government's GST portal, dated June 17, 2026. Now, this isn't just a rumor or some planned proposal. This is the finalized, approved technical documentation. Basically, the trade and ERP vendors asked for clarity on some earlier rules, and this document is the definitive answer from the Goods and Services Tax Network. It lays out exactly what has to happen to your API payloads moving forward.
And right there in that document is a date you absolutely cannot ignore. August 1, 2026. That is your hard deadline. By this exact date, these changes are going to be pushed into the live production environment. And honestly, if your systems aren't updated to handle these new mandatory fields and validations by August 1st, your automated e-way bill generations are just going to fail. It's as simple as that. There's a very real sense of urgency here. Okay, let's run through our roadmap for today. We're going to cover the August 2026 API update, the mandatory ship to GSIN rules, the URP workaround, transaction comparisons, the new error codes, and wrap up with voluntary e-way bill closures. Let's jump in. Starting off with Section 1, the mandatory update for Ship to GSTIN rules. So, looking at the actual schema-level changes, here's what's happening. If you're generating an IRN and an e-way bill together, the field for the Ship to GSTIN is now conditionally mandatory. What does that mean? Well, it means if you provide the Ship to legal name and address, you now have to provide the Ship to GSTIN. It is no longer optional. On top of that, if you're generating an e-way bill using an IRN that's already been generated, you're going to see a brand new, strictly mandatory GSTIN field under Export Ship Details. They've also thrown in an optional trade name field, but really it's that mandatory GSTIN requirement that needs your immediate attention. Now, I know the immediate question developers always ask here is, wait, what if my Ship to party doesn't even have a GSTIN? And that brings us to your vital workaround, URP. It literally stands for unregistered person. If a valid GSTIN just isn't available because the consignee is unregistered, or maybe it just doesn't apply to this specific transaction, you must pass the exact string URP in the Ship to GSTIN field. If you try passing a blank or a no value, the payload is going to get rejected. So remember, URP is your master key for these exceptions. It's also absolutely crucial to understand how these rules play out across different types of transactions. Let's compare export e-way bills directly with B2B and SEC transactions. If you're dealing with export e-way bills, the API actually gives you some flexibility. The ship details, including the GSTIN that you provided during IRN generation, can actually be replaced later when you generate the e-way bill. But, and this is a big but, for B2B and SEC transactions, it is strictly locked down. You cannot replace those ship details later on. Once they're provided during IRN generation, they are fixed for good. Moving right along to Section 2, System Validations and New Error Codes. You might actually want to grab a quick screenshot of this table right here. Seriously, having these exact error codes handy is going to save your dev team some sleepless nights. Notice that error 5001 and 5002 trigger if you completely miss that mandatory ship to GSTIN we just talked about. But look really closely at error 2323. In Bill 2/Ship 2 transactions, the system now mandates that these have to be distinct parties. If your payload passes the exact same GSTIN for both the Bill 2 and Ship 2, boom, you hit error 2323. Furthermore, they are validating geography now. Errors 2325, 4740, and 3039 will fire off if your Ship 2 state code or PIN code doesn't perfectly align with the state code embedded inside that GSTIN. The validations are just getting much smarter.
All right, Section 3, the e-way bill upgrade, focusing on voluntary closures.
Now, this is a really cool upgrade, operationally speaking. This facility lets you officially close an e-way bill in the system the exact moment the delivery of the goods is completed. It basically provides a definitive final system record that the movement of goods is concluded. But who actually has the power to trigger this closure? Well, the advisory specifically authorizes 4 stakeholders: the supplier, the recipient, the transporter actively involved in the transaction, or, and this is very practical, the driver or authorized person using the specific mobile number that was provided when the e-way bill was generated.
Implementing this new feature does require a bit of a dance between your ERP integration and the portal functionality itself. There is a brand new EWB closure API available right now. To use it, you just transmit the e-way bill number, the closure date, and any remarks. But you definitely need to be aware of the current limitations. As of right now, capturing a driver's mobile number for closure purposes, you can't do that through the API. It has to be done on the GST portal. Also, there's currently no API to retrieve a list of e-way bills that have already been marked closed. That functionality might roll out later, but for now, ERPs can push the closures, but fetching them requires a visit to the portal.
To make sure daily trade isn't bottlenecked while everyone gets used to this new, closed status, the GSTN is giving us a bit of a grace period. During this initial stabilization phase, the system will actually still allow post-closure actions, things like updating the vehicle details or extending the validity. But consider yourself warned, this is strictly a temporary relaxation. Once the system stabilizes, those actions are going to be heavily restricted on any closed bills.
Which brings us to our final section, sandbox testing and deadlines.
Visually mapping out the timeline here, you can see exactly where we stand today. We are already in the sandbox phase. Every single API change, validation rule, and error code we just went over has been released into the sandbox environment. Your readiness phase starts right now. ERP vendors, GSPs, ASPs, you've got to start testing today. Deliberately trigger those specific error codes to make sure your exception handling works flawlessly. Because on August 1, 2026, all of this moves into mandatory production. So, that leaves us with the absolute most important question for any developer, system integrator, or taxpayer watching this explainer. August 1st is rapidly approaching. Are your API configurations updated? Is your team actually utilizing the sandbox? And most importantly, will your systems be 100% ready to generate error-free e-way bills under these new rules? Don't wait until the end of July to figure this out. Get into the sandbox, map out those new payload requirements, and ensure your logistics operations won't skip a beat. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and happy testing!